In the broader Caribbean and here, specifically in the Virgin Islands, we've had extensive archaeological digs, some of which have lasted years. Some of the most abundant and valuable materials often found by archaeologists is that of pottery. Finding pottery could help date the civilizations that existed in particular areas, as well as understanding what groups of people actually live there. In broader context, this can support a deeper understanding of migration patterns of indigenous peoples, yielding a deeper understanding of their own cultural traditions, as well as their relationship to the environment around them. Taino people who are considered to be indigenous to the Caribbean region would use pottery not just for utilitarian reasons, but also for connection to divine source. Pottery could be used for ancestral veneration, they could be used for ritual work, and in other instances, they could be used as vessels that held spirits. Central to Taino spirituality were zemis. Zemis were these carved figures, often through wood or shells, that represented various spirits in the Taino spirituality pantheon. In some instances, they could represent animal spirits or the spirits of the ancestors who may have passed away, and in other instances, they could represent works of nature. That could include hurricanes, earthquakes, tsunamis, rain. A really great example of this is the Trigonolito, which represents the spirit of the cassava crop. And for those of you who don't know, cassava was a really big part of the diet of indigenous people in the Caribbean. It was believed that if you buried several of these in a field of crops, you could encourage more agricultural prosperity and general fertility in the village. Another important spiritual role that pottery played for the Taino indigenous communities is that they were vessels that held powders and roots and a whole bunch of herbal mix-ups that would be ultimately ingested and used for prophesying, journeying work, dream work, and traveling in between worlds to retrieve lost souls. Cohoba, for instance, was a powdery substance that, when inhaled, could incite hallucinogenic experiences. These rituals, often held by chiefs, were used to get guidance from the zemis and perhaps warnings of impending danger, doom, drought, or sickness. When people inhaled this substance, they went into a trance-like state and then came out of it with a bunch of information. Gleaning more of the tangible details around indigenous communities in the Caribbean, like the Taino people, is really important. It's important that we understand what they ate, what their everyday life was like, what their building and agricultural and architectural prowess was. This informs where we were, where we are, and where we might be going. But one of my favorite parts of learning about these indigenous communities is absolutely the spirituality side of things. The level of reverence that these people held for the land and held for the nature and the natural occurrences of climate and weather is something to be inspired to. My name is Gabrielle Querrard, and you're watching Yellow Cedar.